You've probably been seeing it all over the place where people are talking about how courses are dead. You should stop selling courses. The courses business model of digital products is on the decline. I've talked about it a few times here on my channel recently. Now, in this video, I'm not going to continue to harp on that fact, and I do believe it is a fact because I have seen it in my own data. But instead, I'm going to focus on a different method and a different model. It's one that I've personally been crafting, building, and perfecting for the last 5 years in my own business. For the past 5 years, I've built a community that is a little bit more of a community content hybrid model. And I'm going to walk you through why I feel that model is not only the best path forward and an alternative to the course model, but why it actually marries the two concepts of a course or a content-based business and a community together in a way that's incredibly easy for you to manage and exactly what your customers or members are craving. Now, I said I don't want to harp on the course content business model, but I do want to emphasize three very quick points. And these are based on my own findings and my own experience over the past 5 years. And bear in mind, 5 years ago, the world was going through something very different than it is today. And people were craving this idea of learning new skills and trying to develop themselves in preparation for trying to alter the trajectory of their careers and their ability to provide for their families. Today, it's very, very different than it was 5 years ago. What we're in now is a value race to the bottom with all of the saturation of content and everybody's ability to create digital products and content-based businesses. There's nothing unique about that. Now, I'll combine the last few really quickly so that we can move on from why the course model doesn't work by sharing that the biggest problem I have faced and seen in my own content, my own courses, and in those that I've helped others create for their course-based businesses is that courses alone are very, very static. And the problem with having static content is that we're expecting our learners, or those who are taking our content, to evolve, to become and change into something else after having learned from our course content. So I've never really liked the idea that we're taking something static and expecting something dynamic out the other end. And all the while, the expectation and what our members or learners or students or customers are craving from us is something entirely different than it was 5 years ago. This leads into what I've been working on for essentially the last 5 years in my own community-powered business. It's essentially everything that our customers are craving, which is connection, curation, and continuity. And what I hope that you'll take away from this video and from the 3Cs framework at the end is this idea of how different this model is, this hybrid community model is from a course-based business in terms of both what you are going to get out of it and what your customers are going to get out of it. Now let's quickly break down each of the 3Cs to help you better understand how you can incorporate these into your business. I think a Venn diagram like this best represents this idea of the hybrid community, and it shows that when you overlap all three of these concepts together, you get the thriving hybrid community. So now let's break down and give examples of how these three concepts, connection, curation, and continuity, can apply and how you can apply them into your business. Let's go ahead and start with connection. That's the first one. And behind connection is this idea of authenticity. In fact, as I was coming up with this framework, I was thinking instead of the 3Cs framework, it would be the ACE framework. And connection used to be called authenticity. I don't want to lose the idea of authenticity behind connection. Something that I think has been central to my own business is how I have always tried to be authentic with my members. Now, as I start to put these onto the screen, I want you to remember this is not just a community business. This is a hybrid community. This is taking a course-based business or a content-based business. It could be workshops, it could be all sorts of different types of content, and taking it and combining it with a traditional community. So don't be thinking that you're strictly building a community here. You're building a hybrid of the two. Okay, I wanted to make sure that point got across. So now as we continue here, one of the ways that you can incorporate connection into your hybrid community is through ensuring that everything you do involves direct access to you. This is one of the most important things that I've done inside of my community is that I hate to say I've made it all about me, but the idea behind it is that people are joining for that direct access to you. So however you can provide that to your members is going to directly affect the success of your community. I'm going to call it a community, even though it's a hybrid community. It's going to get a little redundant to keep saying it. So with direct access to you, that can come in a variety of different formats. It can be live Q&As, it could be office hours, it can be just you posting Loom video replies to questions that you get inside of your community. Sometimes, like in my community, a Loom reply is more efficient for me and also more informative for the person who asked a question. My community is all about people who are stuck in the endless setup and getting stuck in the tech challenges of building their business. So I help them get unstuck, and obviously a video would be very helpful there. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just the method of delivery. It goes to the authenticity and the connection that I build with that person asking the question when they get a video reply from me. It's unmatched by anything else that I've seen. The next idea here is that inside of your community, you can create an open learning environment. I do this in my community all the time. It's about sharing your wins and your missteps or your losses or things that you could have done better. It's being very open and authentic. Again, going back to this authenticity with your members. I regularly inside of our calls will share with people things I've tried that didn't work, or I'll share with people that I'm looking for their ideas to how I could make something better. In a way, this connection is you becoming a part of your own community and a part of the own learning process that your students are involved in so that they can see you as more than just a instructor or a facilitator and come to reference you as another member of the community. And in a weird way, although they're referencing you as another member of the community in their minds and they're seeing you like that, you're also elevating yourself in their eyes at the same time. It's been really interesting to see how this has worked. Now, in my community, one of the things that I've done a lot is I've really tried to celebrate the idea of progress over perfection. And I've really tried to get people to understand the concept that doing something is better than doing nothing. So something that I really try to do is to spotlight people inside of my community who have iterated publicly and shown and done things in public inside of our community. I love to spotlight that. I love to try to call that out. And I love to understand each of my individual members, who they are. Obviously, I want to know all of their names and I want to know all of their businesses very well so that I can call out those individuals and be able to speak personally to them and the evolution that they've gone through. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the idea of having a static course that's kind of unchanging and how that is at just complete odds with the idea of our learners trying to evolve into something. So whenever I see evolution or improvement inside of my community and my members, I really try to make note of it and let them know and see that I have made that observation. Okay, so the idea behind curation, I want to help you understand the difference between having course content and helping people find that right information. People get stuck so quickly when they're faced with courses. Even the best course you can imagine, people get stuck. They have this analysis paralysis. So regardless of how many courses I have in my community about the best tools to use in your tech stack, I hear all the time, I don't know what tool I should use. So I created tech stack roadmaps to help people identify, or blueprints to help people identify the right tech stack, and then roadmaps, which are guided journeys for them to implement those tech stacks. Curation also helps save your members time. So saving them time, removing the scavenger hunt of having to look through 50 courses. One of the things I really like is I just tell my members, if you can't find something, post in the community. Like, how do I do this with this tool? I can be the one that tells them it's right here. Watch this video. Here's 3 other videos that might help you. When you curate content for people, you also boost implementation, and every resource then that you have leads to action. So for example, if somebody is asking a question in my community, kind of like the previous example, if someone has a question with their tech stack, they don't know how to do something, and I say to them, here's a resource and here's 3 others that you can watch that will take you to the next 3 steps. Or something else that I've been doing is I've been really trying to put my videos into better playlists so that based on the questions people ask, I can say, here's a playlist. It might be related to high level and someone wants to know about high level funnels. In fact, this actually happened on the office hours call in my community yesterday. A member asked about creating offers and selling them and building automations inside of her high level account. And I said, actually, I have a YouTube playlist for you that will walk you through this process step by step. It's one of the things I've actually implemented in one of my new programs called the Business Growth Loop. So I linked that playlist, and now this member can go have a boost to their implementation and get things done faster and save time. All these things tend to relate. And then taking it one step further here, the idea of curating content for people builds trust, builds connection, goes back to the connection point here, and you become the guide who keeps this map of theirs updated. So that's the idea behind curation. And hopefully you can start to see how that goes more than just saying, here's a course, good luck. It almost takes it from being a do it yourself to a do it with you approach. Okay, and the last of our three C's here is continuity. And some people might struggle to know what continuity means. I like to think of it as like continuous or continuing. It's this idea, and I put this little tagline, always current, never obsolete. And I've gone ahead and just filled in all of these for us to be able to talk through them. So the idea of continuity is that your membership feels like it's always alive and that the learning is always happening, or the engagement's a key word here in continuity. So the idea behind this is truly the engagement, and the engagement with you really ties back to connection. It's this idea that you're always learning, and the nature of the community is continuous and always evolving in how they're consuming your content, so that it doesn't feel like they've just bought a course and the information then becomes out of date. Maybe you update it, maybe you don't. They have to wait for an update. It's this idea that learning, engaging, and evolving is always happening in your community. But it is this idea that continuity sustains and creates and fuels engagement. Hopefully the three C's help you to see how you can still create content, whether it be courses, workshops, etc., but the way in which you create it and the way in which you present it to your community and the way in which you engage with and connect with your members and help them to work through the content, that's a very different type of experience from just creating content and selling it. If you find yourself in the middle of creating a course right now, thinking that you are going to launch this course or series of courses or workshops and be a course content-based business, I don't want you to suddenly lose hope and think that you've been doing all this for nothing. Transitioning from a course business model to a hybrid community business model isn't all that difficult. One of the things that just makes so much sense to me about the hybrid community business model, and looking at it through the lens of connection and authenticity and engagement and curation, suddenly this becomes almost easier and more natural than having to prop up a business on creating information and having to sell information and get people to want to buy information, particularly in this day and age. If you're thinking, well, how do I transition to this hybrid community business model? Super easy way to get started is to start with some form of live engagement, live event type experience with your members. I think the way that I've done it for the last 5 years is probably the lowest barrier to entry, and I think it's been a great success. And that's just to have a live group call once a week. You could call it an office hours, you could call it a Q&A. If you still want to launch your course, an easy way to do that and to engage in this live event concept is to say, I'm going to teach one day of the week and I'm going to do Q&A another day of the week. Instead of releasing all of your information, I would teach my course live. I would teach it in a workshop, a live workshop setting, and I would take those videos and turn those videos into the course. You could also potentially, if you've already done a lot of recording on your course content, you could do like a hybrid approach. And another nice thing about this model is that if you were planning on doing like a launch model where you open your doors and then close them, that type of thing, I'm not personally a big fan of that model, but I feel like migrating from that model to a hybrid course model that utilizes more of this cohort accelerator type learning, live workshop learning model could actually work really well for you not to lose any of the work you've done preparing for your launch. Just transition it more to live type events. And then with all of that content, now you have a resource library. Now you can curate that content. Now you can build engagement and start to build your community with content already there for you to use. So hopefully that helps you think, if you were in the middle of that transition, how you could make the change. Okay, that's it for this video. If you do want to work together and you need help putting together your community, your curriculum, and the 3C framework, there's a link below in the description where you can get help from me.